Hey, some more packages arrived today, Hugo called out. What's in them? I asked. Oh, just some fishing gear. A colleague at work invited me to go fishing, so I bought some new stuff. Fishing gear? I felt uneasy seeing my husband Hugo's excitement. Didn't you buy fishing gear when we first got married and never used it? I was too busy to go, but that old gear is outdated. If I'm going, I need new stuff. I see. Is there a problem with that? Hugo's tone became defensive. It's not that, but my colleague was kind enough to invite me. I can't just say no. I have work, you know. I can't dwell on sentiment like you do. I understood what Hugo was saying, but it was hard to believe we were a couple sharing the same sorrow when he seemed so happy, like nothing had happened. I'm Cynthia, 33 years old, and we've been married for 6 years. Hugo was making these fishing plans just 2 months after our daughter passed away. I still couldn't get over my grief, but I couldn't understand how Hugo seemed so unaffected. My father-in-law, Wilson, passed away in our 2nd year of marriage. He adored his granddaughter and loved her more than anything. I wonder if they're together in heaven now. That's the only thought that comforts me. Before he died, Wilson told me, don't let Hugo and your mother-in-law Rachel handle the money. I realized after getting married that Hugo and Rachel are big spenders. They spend without thinking if they have money. That's why Wilson always managed the finances. Wilson was a gentle soul, always looking out for me. Having no family of my own, he was like a real father to me, and his death hit me hard. Our daughter, Laura, was born a year after our marriage. She was such a bright and cheerful girl, always bringing light into our lives. Mom, everyone's so jealous of my packed lunch. I bet it's the best in preschool. Then Mom will have to try even harder. Mom, can I ask for a little favor? What is it? Can you make more food for my next packed lunch? I want to eat more. Can you eat that much? I won't leave any, I promise. Okay, I'll do it. The following month, Laura's preschool teacher quietly told me something. There was a child in class who never had a mom and whose dad was too busy with work to make a packed lunch, always bringing just a supermarket sandwich and an apple. Laura had been sharing her packed lunch with this child. Laura's packed lunch is more than I can eat, so please help me eat it, she would say, splitting it in half. Hearing this, I was so proud of Laura. Such a kind and wonderful child. Every expression of Laura's, her angry face, her crying face, and her brightest smiles, were all treasures to me. And then one day, that treasure was suddenly gone. The night before, Laura went to bed as usual, just a bit earlier than normal. I'm sleepy, she said, but I just thought she was tired from preschool. After watching Laura start to breathe softly in her sleep, I left the bed. Usually Laura and I sleep together. After Laura fell asleep, I cleaned up dinner, took a shower after Rachel did, finished cleaning the shower room, and by the time I returned to the bedroom, it was almost midnight. Hugo was away on a business trip that night. Laura was lying quietly in bed. I thought she was sleeping well, but as I was about to get into bed, I noticed something was wrong. I couldn't hear Laura's breathing. What? I reached out to touch Laura's cheek. It was noticeably colder than usual. Laura, what's wrong? Laura was completely unresponsive. I couldn't understand what was happening, but I knew I had to call an ambulance. I jumped in with Laura, clutching her cold hand. As soon as the paramedics saw her, I noticed a grim expression on their faces. One of them began as they rushed her to the hospital. Laura, you'll be okay, right? You'll get better once we're at the hospital, right? I repeated these words to myself, desperately hoping they were true. But when we arrived, the first thing the doctor said was, I'm terribly sorry, but she's already gone. I became frantic, begging the doctor to examine Laura over and over. It couldn't be true. She was fine before bed. The cause was unknown. These sudden events can happen even with small children, the doctor said. I had heard such things before, but never imagined it could happen to my own child. Laura and I had only lived together for 4 short years. I thought we had decades ahead of us. I couldn't believe she was suddenly gone. Overwhelmed, I panicked and passed out. When I woke up, Hugo and Rachel were there, having been notified of what happened. I realized I had forgotten to call Rachel when I left the house. Where's Laura? I hoped it was all a bad dream, but Hugo gestured that she was gone. How can this be? Neither Hugo nor Rachel said anything, but their eyes seemed to confirm my worst fears. For a while, I was almost catatonic. I cried looking at Laura's things, cried watching her favorite cartoons, and cried remembering her in everything I did. At first, Hugo didn't say anything, but gradually he began to sigh audibly and mutter, "She's so morbid." Rachel too started to nag me. "Hey, how long are you going to be in a daze? Housework is Cynthia's job, isn't it? Could you please get it together?" "I'm sorry," I said, knowing I shouldn't be like this. But my heart was heavy and I just couldn't function as efficiently as before. Yet, as they say, time heals. About 6 months later, I started to manage the daily routines normally again. Hugo did cry a bit at the funeral, but he was never what you would call a doting father. He preferred playing games over spending time with Laura, which is why she wasn't very attached to him. Maybe Hugo wasn't as heartbroken because he didn't feel much of a connection as a parent. But who else will mourn for Laura, our daughter who only lived for 4 years, if not her parents? About a month after Laura's death, Hugo returned to his usual spendthrift self, enjoying shopping and browsing the web. When Laura died, both Hugo and Rachel looked at me as if it was my fault, like they were silently blaming me. But they didn't say anything, probably because they weren't as heartbroken about her absence as I was. I didn't expect them to grieve the same way, but I wish Hugo, as a parent who lost a child, would have been more supportive. Rachel, on the other hand, went back to her routine within a week. She resumed shopping, going out with friends, and laughing as if Laura had never existed. When Laura was born, Rachel frowned upon seeing her face. "She looks more like Cynthia than Hugo. We can't expect much from her future," she would say. She often ignored Laura and seemed reluctant to interact with her, probably not feeling any special affection. She didn't shed a tear at the funeral. Their attitudes have always been a point of contention for me. Almost a year passed since Laura's death, and seeing Hugo and Rachel happily shopping, I felt an indescribable frustration. They never talked to Laura's picture. How could they act so normally? It seemed like we couldn't understand each other at all. Then one day, Hugo and Rachel suggested we go out together. "Where are we going?" I asked. "How about somewhere with fresh air to change our mood?" Hugo suggested. "Cynthia, you've been just going between home and the supermarket since Laura passed. That's why you're so down." "I've been worried about you too, Cynthia," Rachel added. "You've been so down." "Worried, you, Rachel?" "Of course. Cynthia is the wife of our dear son. I've been trying hard for your sake." I couldn't fully believe that, but a part of me felt a little happy to hear it. "How about hiking for a change?" Hugo continued. "Going somewhere with fresh air might lift your spirits. I want you to feel a bit better." "You really thought that?" "Of course, I'm your husband. It's natural to worry about my wife." "But you didn't seem that down." "I was holding it together. If I got down too, the house would become too gloomy. So let's go hiking." I wondered if they really cared, but it was hard to believe. "Laura would want you to be happy, Cynthia. Think of this as a tribute to her," Hugo said. That moved me. I knew Laura wouldn't want me to cry forever. That's something I've always known in my head. "But I've never hiked before," I said. "Don't worry, even I can climb it. It's more like a light hike," Hugo reassured me. "Well, if Hugo and Rachel insist." "Great, I'm looking forward to it." So I agreed to go hiking with Hugo and Rachel. We drove to the foot of the mountain and started our ascent. It was a sunny day and many people were around, which felt reassuring. But as we reached the midway point, the crowd thinned, despite being told it was a beginner's course. I was surprised by the roughness of the terrain, yet Hugo and Rachel walked with ease, familiar with the area. "Hey, let's take this path," Hugo suggested. "Ha! Yeah, it looks less crowded. Let's go that way," Rachel agreed. "But shouldn't we follow the path everyone else is taking?" I asked, feeling uneasy. "It's fine. I've been here before and know the way. This path is straightforward, and you can't get lost," Hugo reassured me. "If Hugo says it's okay, then it must be," Rachel added. "Trust me, there's a really scenic spot just ahead, Cynthia. You'll be amazed." Before finishing his sentence, Hugo started walking down the path, followed by Rachel. Reluctantly, I followed them, but the further we went, the more rugged the path became, almost like a trail for animals rather than a proper path. "Wait, are you sure we're on the right path? Can we really get through here?" I asked, my concern growing. "Don't worry, we'll reach a wider path soon. Just keep up," Hugo said confidently. Hugo and Rachel continued, seemingly sure of themselves. Rachel, now 60, was surprisingly nimble, walking more effortlessly than I was. Soon they were far ahead, their figures intermittently visible through the dense foliage. "Wait, don't leave me behind here," I called out. Hurry up. We'll run out of daylight. Hugo's voice echoed from the distance. I hurried, but couldn't catch up. Their heads, once visible, were now out of sight. Hugo, Rachel, I called out in fear, but no reply came. As I moved forward, I lost sight of them completely. I didn't know which way to go. What should I do? I was lost, the words stranded, echoing in my mind. This can't be happening. Maybe I should have stayed put, thinking Hugo would come back for me. But as time passed, neither Hugo nor Rachel appeared. There was no sign of anyone approaching. Knowing I couldn't just stand there, I started walking again, filled with fear. My anxiety grew as I realized I couldn't tell which way was which. I decided to retrace my steps, but even finding my own tracks on this unmarked path was a challenge. I felt like I was getting deeper into the wilderness. Panicking, I stumbled several times, each fall draining more energy. Soon, the surroundings began to darken, and my anxiety intensified. If night fell, I wouldn't be able to descend. The temperature dropped as evening approached. It was late March, but the nights were still cold, especially in the mountains. What would happen if I had to spend the night here? Exhausted, I collapsed against a large tree. I can't go on, I voiced my despair. Thoughts of this being the end of my life crept in, my consciousness fading. In my dimming awareness, I heard a voice I had longed to hear. Mom, Mom. Shocked, I opened my eyes. There was my dear Laura. Laura, is that you? Laura smiled at me. Ah, I must be in heaven, I thought hazily. I reached out to hug Laura, but she seemed to slip through my arms, flying away. Laura, Mom is over here. Laura turned and started running. Wait, I reflexively stood up to follow Laura, feeling strangely energized despite my earlier exhaustion. This couldn't be the real world, but if it meant holding Laura again, I didn't care if it was a dream. When I thought of that, I naturally felt motivated. I felt invigorated and chased after Laura. Laura, wait, I called. Laura turned back, smiling. It felt like playing tag with Laura, a joyful feeling. Before I knew it, I had reached the foot of the mountain, and Laura was gone. Laura, where are you? Laura was nowhere to be seen. Had I just seen an illusion? Then someone shone a flashlight on me. Are you okay? I got lost on the trail. Are you hurt? Thank you, I'm fine. My family must be waiting for me. I headed down to the parking lot at the foot of the mountain, but our car wasn't there. Had Hugo and Rachel left without me? No way. As I stood there dumbfounded, I saw a faint image of Laura where her car should have been. Laura. I ran towards her, but my body passed right through. I couldn't embrace her. Laura looked sad, as if she wanted to tell me something. I felt she had a message for me. Then I realized something was very wrong. If we had been separated, they would have reported me missing. The area should have been in an uproar, but no one seemed to be looking for me. The parking lot was silent and deserted. Did Hugo and Rachel not even try to find me? What does this mean? Laura must have appeared to show me this. I went to the station and took a train home. I noticed people staring at me curiously, but I was too preoccupied to care. I quietly opened the door and peeked inside. I could hear Hugo and Rachel's voices, unnaturally cheerful. I sneaked into the next room and observed them through a gap in the sliding door. They were drinking and laughing, unconcerned that I hadn't returned. We did it. No more of her depressing face, Hugo said. Wonder how she's doing now, shivering in the mountains. Just thinking about it makes me laugh. Cynthia is so slow, she'll never make it back, Rachel added. It's going to be extra cold tonight. Imagine her alone and cold out there. We'll tell people she ran off with another man, then file a missing person report. When will we get the insurance money? Hugo asked. It'll take a few years before she's declared legally missing. If only her body was found, we'd get it faster. Let's say she called from the mountain. Then they'll find her sooner. My son is so clever, Rachel praised. Hearing this, I trembled with anger. I couldn't believe they had planned this. I listened to their conversation, unnoticed. I was a fool to ever think of them as family. Make sure to cry at the funeral, Hugo said. You didn't shed a tear for Laura. Well, I wasn't sad. Laura wasn't cute. She looked just like Cynthia. Rachel replied, I never wanted kids. They're just annoying. Hearing this, I burst open the sliding door. Hugo and Rachel looked at me in surprise, their expressions frozen in shock. Hugo backed up against the wall while Rachel covered her head with a throw. I realized I must have looked like a ghost covered in mud, with torn clothes and scratches. I decided to play along. I'll haunt you. I declared, my voice echoing through the room. They shivered in fear. It wasn't me. Blame Hugo, Rachel yelled. What? You agreed. Mom was the one laughing about how cold it must be. Hugo protested. It's not my fault. Haunt her. Hugo pleaded. Hugo, selling out your own mother. What if I get haunted? Rachel said, terrified. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please go to heaven. They begged, beyond reason. They must have really thought they had sent me to the afterlife. I'm still very much alive, I said, lifting my foot to show them. They looked utterly bewildered. What was your plan, leaving me in the middle of the mountains? I just wanted to fulfill your wish, Hugo stammered. You wanted to see Laura, right? I thought I'd send you to her. It was out of kindness. I was speechless. Did they really think that excuse would hold up? I heard your entire conversation, I informed them. Their faces turned even paler. Of course I'll be divorcing Hugo. I can't stay here, not with my life on the line. Too bad you won't get the insurance money. I recorded your conversation. I'm taking it to the police. What? I'll consult a lawyer and you'll face the consequences. Cynthia's fine, right? We didn't commit any crime. I won't let this go unpunished. Perhaps it was seeing Laura that gave me strength or knowing their evil intentions, but I felt a newfound power within me. I wasn't going to lose. Rachel, still unable to believe I was alive, peeked out from under her throw at Hugo, and me, still trembling. On the contrary, I wanted to ask myself, do I look that much like a ghost? I didn't bother with their stunned faces and began gathering my belongings to leave the house. I had no destination in mind but managed to find a no-frills hotel. I was grateful for the savings I had hidden before marriage. Hugo and Rachel didn't know I had savings. They would have demanded it if they did. The next day, I visited the police and a lawyer's office. Abandoning a healthy adult in the mountains might not constitute abandonment, but intentionally leaving someone in a dangerous place was illegal. Some punishment was inevitable. My lawyer said I could claim damages for emotional distress. My recording of their conversation led to their arrest for fraud and assault, resulting in a criminal sentence. The divorce was finalized and I claimed compensation and damages. I had secretly saved money just as Wilson advised, slowly transferring small amounts from our living expenses account to another one. Even though the savings were from after marriage, all payments were made to me, leaving Hugo with nothing. I found a place to live and a job. I'll never overcome the grief of losing Laura, but I cherish the happy memories we shared. As long as I have these memories, I won't be lonely. Laura saved my life. She wanted me to live. I'm the only one who can cherish her memories. I'm not alone. Laura's smiling face is always with me. Mom, I love your smile, Laura often said. So I'll keep smiling. The smile Laura loved, and move forward.